Item number 12, discussion and possible action regarding city's purchase and issuance of police department ammunition. Chief?
That ain't good. I broke his glue.
Uh-oh.
All right. Last city council meeting, Councilman Channel asked that we discuss the ammunition purchasing for the police department. So the last couple of weeks, staff has spent a large amount of time compiling data to hopefully give you an answer and maybe for you to give us some guidance. We attached several attachments to your packet. I'll walk through those real quick. Attachment number 1 shows the ammunition and firearm accessory purchases for fiscal year 16 through today. Attachment 2, it's the same document with notes on exactly what firearms and accessories were purchased outside of the ammunition. Attachment 3 shows the types and number of ammunition purchases for fiscal year 16 through today. Attachment 4, we wanted to compare how we stand in relation to other very similar cities. The cities that were chosen are all participants in OML. They have a population between 10,000 and 16,000, and all of them operate under a collective bargaining agreement, the union. Tahlequah is probably, after talking to Tahlequah, they are probably, I don't know, an anomaly. They have an elected chief, and so elected chiefs and budgets are different, but I left it in there for you all to consider. The mean budget of all of the departments that submitted returns is $17,643. The median budget is $20,000, and the mode budget is $20,000. None of the other departments that were surveyed have SWAT teams, less lethal and simunition. Some have one or the other, but none of them have all three like we do. We issue the second most pistol ammunition. Elk City issues 1,200 rounds annually to their officers. We issue 600. We issue 240 rifle rounds in a year and 120 shotgun rounds in a year. We tie with Choctaw for the highest number of annual cleat qualifications. One cleat qualification is mandatory. We do too. This was a practice that was in place before I got here. We train the most. We average one a month. We don't hit every month, but we sure as heck try to. None of the other places do that. That was not in place when I got here. That's something that I do. Attachment 6 contains all the invoices concerning ammunition, firearms, and accessories through fiscal year 16 to today. Or attachment 5. Attachment 6 contains the rules that we use for ammunition and some information in regards to training and litigation. I averaged our ammunition budget for the years in question, and we averaged $20,354.16. One of the proposed, or I guess the proposed counter plan to this is to move our ammunition budget down to $9,000 roughly. I looked, and if I have my figures right, that takes us back to about where we were in 2011. You have any questions?
The number of special teams you said is different than the comparison of other towns.
Right.
that
We
you
have
showed?
a SWAT team we provide ammunition for, and we have less lethal, and we have simunitions.
And the reason that makes us different is because it's different weapons that we're using, or they have to
It's more
fire more
training.
frequently?
It's like we try to average one training a month with the police department on firearms when we can, and the SWAT team has a 2-day training every month when their schedule allows. And all of that's not firearms related, but a lot of it is firearms related and simunition related and less lethal related. So that's one of the reasons why we have higher numbers of purchases. We have all these people in all these things that we buy ammunition for inside our budget, and we train more than the other departments.
Crime's up in this county and the city, right?
Yes.
That answers part of it.
Well, according to the inventory, we have over 100,000 rounds
Correct,
in the armory.
correct.
That's enough to take care of every man, woman, and child in this city 10 times over. What are we
The
saving
reason
for?
our inventory is so high right now is because due to the shortage of personnel that we've had, we have not been able to do either one of our qualifications this year. Once we get the qualifications in, that number will drop significantly.
But the qualifications for cleat, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
That's 25 rounds?
Well, it is 25 rounds if you pass the first time. The pattern and practice of the city is to give a lot of attempts to pass.
So there's no, I read somewhere, and it might have been some of my research, they get, say, 3 attempts or something. Is that not the way
That
it
was
is?
on one of, I think Choctaw does that. They get 3 attempts. If they
And it
don't
might have
make it,
been, but
Then they get sent to training. If they don't make it again, then they get suspended and probably lose their job. The last place I worked, we came up with something very similar to that in our contract. The issue here is at least one city manager has tried to address some stuff in curbing the amount of ammunition that we dole out, and it was met with pretty good resistance by the union because basically we tried to do it unilaterally without talking to them.
Chief, your first attachment, I think it was your first attachment, talks about some of the processes that you have for accounting for ammunition, and obviously, the
That's
issue...
attachment 6.
I'm sorry?
Attachment 6.
6, okay. And obviously, things that caught my mind is that the issuance of ammunition is not recorded, and I didn't see anything in there that reflects issuance of ammunition and versus firing of the ammunition.
Correct.
So it's potential that as a officer, I could be issued, let's just say 50 rounds, shoot 20, and then there's 30 that are still out there someplace.
That is correct.
Is that something that we need to look at, change?
Oh, no, it's easier.
Did you inherit this system, and if so, are you going to continue with it, or what
That is the
changes?
system that I inherited. Typically, it is the system that is used by far and large throughout law enforcement. There are a handful of agencies that I know of that says, hey, there's one agency that I know of in particular. They pull out their 50 rounds. They get whatever color fingernail polish it is. They mark the heads of all the 50 rounds. And when those 50 rounds all come back, you get your next box of ammunition. You know, here's the deal, right? I mean, the council makes the rules. I am more than willing to do whatever you want to do to change the rules. You give me the guidance, and that's the road we will absolutely go down. But some of these things to decide unilaterally up here, you're going to meet resistance with the union.
So you make it sound as if we don't have a choice.
You do have some choices, yes. Well, I
But
mean,
it-
what do you
it
want a
would be
choice on, I
subject
guess?
to negotiation.
Correct. Making the decision tonight is probably not the ideal situation. Of course, my recommendation would be to probably direct the city manager to address this in contract negotiations, if that's where you want to go. And you might provide him with some ideas, probably in executive session or something about.
So the firing and the use of ammunition is a contract item?
No, it is absolutely not in the contract. The problem is, I've been here almost 5 years. It's been going on longer than that, and the union has a pretty good stance with patterns and past practices. Arbitrators typically rule against us when we...
so you're saying I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say arbitrators typically rule against us when we just try to change past practices without a negotiation with the collective bargaining unit.
Well, this is a policy that we're looking to establish. We're not looking to, arbitrate a contract here. We're looking to set a city policy for that department.
Correct.
Because
But
we-
if it changes what we've done in the past and done substantially for years in the past, we have to negotiate that with the union. All of our regular day-to-day policies, typically, we meet with the union, make sure we can all get on some solid ground, meet with the city manager to make sure he's on solid ground with it, and then we bring it to you all.
And anything that has to do with work conditions is subject to negotiation by state law in Oklahoma. So you can make very few unilateral decisions without involving the union and negotiate. Some things are in the contract, some things are determined by past practice. Past practice so it carries almost the same weight as being in the contract. So if you were to say, we're only going to give you 3 tries to qualify and then you're out, that would be changing the work conditions and it would be subject to negotiation.
But how much ammunition we let them pop off is not a working condition.
We'll let the arbitrator discuss that with you.
Okay.
I-
So
I-
the
I
same situation occurred, I mean, I talked to you a little bit about why we don't standardize our caliber so that we've got a little bit better buying power maybe. And that falls into the same category because we've allowed this, and it was that way before you came here.
Correct.
Because we've allowed this so long, now it's standard practice.
Right, I mean, it's not written down, but, I mean, if the union
Well-
takes an issue with it, we're going to go to arbitration, and
In
we're probably
six-
going to lose.
In 16, our budget was $13,000. From 16 to 19, it's over doubled. I'm here to make sure that don't become standard practice.
That's perfectly acceptable.
The chief,
Price
if,
of bullets are going up. Nothing's cheap anymore. I already know that. You know, you put them on a truck and ship them in here, everything's going up.
Most
Guarantee you.
Most handgun ammunition is under 30 cents a round. .223 ammunition is 30 cents a round. Shotgun ammunition is 40 cents a round.
I know, but-
You can go right down the street over here and buy it for 16 cents a round, Winchester.
But when the government gets involved in anything, we already know that it's going to get out of hand.
This isn't the government.
Well, yeah, it is. It is the government.
Chief, your comments, that when you were listing off other comparable police departments, cities, their mean cost was 19,000, the mode, and the median was 20.
Mean
and
is
you
17,643.
Okay, and ours is, you said our average was 20,000, that's over
Our
how
average-
long?
our
How-
average
Over how
over-
many years?
4 years.
4 years, I missed
4
that.
years.
Okay, so.
Were
from
you
that
utilizing
perspective,
Guthrie?
Doesn't look like we're out of line from that perspective.
I've got another perspective to show you, though.
Okay.
Correct.
There was a comment down here, James?
Well, I was
You?
curious, when you were gathering your means and your medians, was Guthrie included in that, or did you exclude them as you were doing your averages?
Oh, Guthrie's included in that.
Okay.
There's 7 of them, including us.
Okay. All right. Other questions of the chief?
I'll be here all night if you need me.
We have anything else? You've got,
Yes. Yeah,
did you want to make this presentation?
yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Don.
Okay, that first one's pretty self-explanatory. I researched a lot of it, if I can get it, there we go. This chart, I tried to get, Logan County Sheriff, of course, they're 3 blocks away. They patrolled the same streets, more streets in the same area. Chickasha and Oklahoma Highway Patrol. Last number I had of officers was 28 here. Logan County's about the same. Chickasha's about the same. And OHP has 800 officers. I'll just start with OHP since they're the big one. Theirs runs around $130,000 per year, and that does include targets. Chickasha runs $58.80. That's for a full year. And Logan County Sheriff, their fiscal budget fiscal year just ended in July. They spent $86.61. Guthrie is 9 months into this, and we're at $28.2. Now, there's a disclaimer on that $28.2. I started this, and then there was $1,600 that was magazines and some accessories, so the actual number there on Guthrie's total dollars is like roughly $26.6, just thinking off the top of my head. That's where we're at after 9 months. That's not a full year. Going back to OHP, that figures out $163 per officer. And OHP, I would say, probably has all of the, we said there's 2 or 3 different kinds of ammunition and things that we need. I figure OHP has the tactical teams and probably just about every kind of weapon that you could imagine, and they do it for $163 per trooper. Chickasha does it for $210 per officer. Logan County, when you divide that out, they did it for $309 per officer. And Guthrie is, like I say, this is just for 9 months, but we're at $1,007 per officer. And then when you break that down, average 30 cents a round, Jeff, that's where I was getting that, because handgun, you can go down the street here to Terry's and buy it for 16 cents a round on 9mm right now. But I did 30 because shotguns are around 40. 223 is around 30 cents. That's what the highway patrol pays for it. And then the handgun is cheaper than 30. So I think 30 is a fair average. But rounds per officer, OHP, they get about 400 per trooper. And Chickasha gets 700. And Logan County Sheriff, they had 962 per officer. And Guthrie comes out at 3,357 rounds per officer. So talking about your perspective and your average, that's where we rate up with these 4 departments. I did the OHP because a lot of people consider them the top law enforcement in the state. Logan County's over here 3 blocks away doing the same thing that our guys are doing, and this is what they spend to do it. Cushing, I did talk to them. They don't give them anything. They said they replace our bullet if we use it on duty. That's what they get. But it was one that I polled, so it's in there. We spend more money per officer than any other department surveyed, and we're spending more money on ammunition than the Logan County Sheriff's Department by approximately $20,000 a year. Like I stated earlier, in 16, our budget, our expenditures was $13,000. Now we're up over double that just since 16. So that's the reason I'm trying to address this here. That $20,000 can be spent, to me, a lot of other places other than popping it up on the range. I'm for the guys having what they need, and I'm not trying to clip their wings, but, when we have machine pistols, we have no business with machine pistols. We have 15,000 rounds of 9mm. Yes, there's officers that carry that, but a lot of that goes through those machine pistols that we have no business owning to begin with. That's for the military. The solution that I'm proposing is a yearly budget cap on ammunition, make that our policy. And the way I come to what I come to, a lot of these places, like the chief said, the officers get a box of ammunition per officer per month. That figures out 600 rounds. 100 rounds per officer for qualifying. Cleat qualifying is 25 rounds. So that's enough to cover their ammunition for 4 qualifications. Or say they make it the first time on handgun, but they want to use some rounds for rifle or shotgun or whatever. I think it's a fair amount. And then, since we're at 700 rounds, if we include another 300 rounds per officer for shotgun, rifle, practice, whatever it is they want to use it on. And I want to explain here, there's, in these departments that I polled, they will have a core of officers that's, maybe 5 or 6 of them where they're really into guns and shooting and they want their ammo. But there's also officers that they shoot to keep current, but they have other interests, whether it's going to the lake or whatever, their hobby is something different. So some of the officers don't even claim what they are allotted. And I'm not saying, when I say 1 box of ammunition per officer per month, if you've got 5 guys that want to burn more than that and you've got another one that says, I'm good with a box every once in a while, I'm not interested in getting into that. Those numbers are just to explain how I come up with these figures. Anyway, that's a grand total of 1,000 rounds in a year. 30 cents per round per officer comes out to $300 per officer. So if you have 30 officers, your budget for ammunition would be $9,000. And for setting an amount per officer, if you have more officers, it can go up without any hassle. It can go down as we don't have officers if we're low. And it's going to save us around $20,000 a year, and it's comparable to everything in our area. And, if you look at the Highway Patrol's budget, what I'm talking about here is pretty much double what the troopers get. Now, the union can get bent out of shape over it, but is the union going, we're 8 times worse than the Highway Patrol, so we need that many more bullets? It doesn't really make any sense. So that's my explanation on it, and what I would like to do is propose that as a solution as far as, making that a policy for, making a motion and adopting that for a policy. When it's what I do for a living. I find the problem, I find what's causing the problem, and I also try to come up with a solution. This is what I came up with. Is it the only thing? No. But when I propose a problem, I want to propose some sort of a solution. So if anybody has any questions on what I came up with or anything needs explained better, go right ahead.
I have some comments whenever it's appropriate.
Okay. Questions by the council? Don, good presentation. Obviously, one of the challenges that you reflect there, you're reflecting 1 year, or in one case, 9 months of data, and averages could change, whether you're stockpiling or not stockpiling. When you've got 1,000 pieces of ammo in your inventory now, you would think, for instance, now we're not going to be buying a whole lot. So a 1-year snapshot could be skewed. And I think the chief's presentation was talking about a 4-year average.
Well,
I think gives a better, a better total picture.
it is, but if you look at and I didn't put it in here, I could have, but if you look back, it hasn't varied much the past 2 or 3 years. It kind of took a big jump from 16 when it was at 13,000, and it jumped up, and it's been
Well, I
right
thought we
up
just
there.
heard that 4 years, it's averaged 20.
No, if you look in the packet,
Well, I don't know, that's what the chief reported.
If you
right.
Look at the page.
Well, I know if you look at the packet, the information that he gave us, if you read that, that's what it's been. Because the one year that was down was 13. That's going to knock the average down for those others that were, say, 24 or 23 or 25, whatever they were.
Sure. Yeah. Other questions or comments?
I would like to say something. I applaud Councilman Channel's keen interest in these issues, such as the fire department's ambulance collection rates, as well as the police department's ammunition usage. We've had some interesting presentations on these issues. But I think we need to pause and take notice of the fact that these requests are coming from an individual council member, and they're tasking our city staff to take a considerable amount of time to formally present the research to answer the questions posed to them. I wouldn't be surprised if this took you over 40 hours in your staff to put this together. And I'm always very appreciative of how well it's done, but I am also very aware of that. But it's been my observation and practice that when I have a question about something like this, and again, I'm not saying these aren't valid concerns or good questions, but I found that an informal visit with the city manager usually provides me with the adequate answer to my concerns. And what I'm really trying to say is that I think we need to be more careful about requesting too many of these kinds of things, these kinds of presentations that take a lot of staff man-hours to put together, costing the use of staff's time, opportunity cost for those people to be doing something better for our community than looking up how much they spent on bullets and things like that. If I, as an individual, have such a question, I think it's perfectly good for me to go in and have a talk with the city manager and find out what the answers are. And if something comes out of that meeting that needs to be elevated to the city council, I'm going to leave that up to the city manager to make that decision at first. If he doesn't do it, then I'll probably bring it up. But I'm going to leave that in the city manager's hands. But we as a council, when we have a question like this, I think the actual request needs to be voted on and approved by a majority of the council, taking into consideration the staff's time that we're calling on them to do this kind of stuff, and weighing that. I think sometimes it's possible to get our answers to our questions in an informational email. We don't even have to have these long, drawn-out presentations that take, I don't know how many hours you spend on that to get your data for that, but it's not really that necessary. But we can't get into the business of micromanaging the staff, and that's what it looks like to me that we're doing. We have department heads, and we have a city manager, and that's what we pay them to do their jobs.
Sir, it's not micromanagement. I was elected by the people to come up here and see to it that we do the best we can. Mr. Taylor, do you have a problem?
Yeah, I do. I really
Okay,
do.
go ahead and say it.
No, the problem is you two.
Gentlemen,
That's the problem.
gentlemen, let's take a second.
I am doing what I was elected by the people to come up here and do. I'm seeing to it that we do the best with what we have and we get the most for our buck and we make it go as far as it is. I'm sorry that you assume this is frivolous and time wasting, but I guarantee you there's a whole bunch of people that voted to put me in here that is glad I'm trying to lose $20,000. Mr. Taylor, if you would like to put $20,000 in the kitty, we'll make this go away right now.
No. Yeah, I'm gonna
Let's
respond
just,
to it. We'll stop right there.
Okay.
I don't think anybody said it was frivolous.
Well, it was pretty much implied.
Okay. Anybody else want to make a comment? City manager, I know, wanted to make a few comments.
If Mr. Chandler would go back to his second slide.
Okay.
Can we dim the lights?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That one.
That one.
Okay. As indicated, as background information, as you look at that slide, if you take the 4-year average, we've spent just over $20,000, $20,300 for the last 4 years as an average. That average is $726 per officer, not $1,000 if you look at the average. In rounds of ammo, of all the various type, we have bought 181,000 rounds. That average is 45,000 a year, and that's 1,600 rounds of ammo, not 3,300. So to some degree, I think this chart is oversimplified and somewhat inflated by just looking at 1 year and not looking at the average. I do truly appreciate Mr. Channel raising questions. He does read all the background information we provide him, even does his own independent research. I do question that we're trying to compare a municipality to a sheriff's office and state agencies because I believe they're different operations. I think it's also reasonable to utilize other municipal agencies of similar size and characteristics for comparative purposes, but I don't think as a budgeting tool, we want to set our standard by Chickasha or any other community. We should budget for our needs, not Chickasha's needs. Some of the conclusions that I have, if you only look at 1 year, as Barry indicated, it could be skewed. You could be looking at a situation where a community had stockpiled the year before, and you happen to pick the year they're down because they're buying less bullets that year. It could be that because of the number of turnovers that we have and recertifying new officers may put more demand on the number of bullets that we use. So if you only look at 1 year, the numbers get skewed. But if you go down through there, Mr. Channel says 28,200. If you use the average for the 4 years, 20,000, then that's overstating it by almost $8,000. The average spent per officer, on the average, it's been $726. That chart shows 1,000, so that's overstating it by almost 300. If you look at rounds per officer, 3,357. If you look at the rounds that we bought of all the different type of animals, ammo, and divide it by the 4 years and the number of officers, it's only 1,617. That's almost half of what the number is on that chart.
But
Finally.
in all respect, I did a year. I didn't do a 4-year average.
I understand, and
It's
I'm not
pretty
being-
easy it's pretty easy to beat up 1 year when you're wanting to compare 4-year averages.
I understand.
I did a chart on the current year from all of the cities.
And I'm just trying to point out the difference if you use average. I'm not trying to attack you or anything, but let me finish, if you will.
Okay.
Then if you compare us to other communities, of course, Mr. Channel picked Chickasha, 5,880, but when we looked at other communities like Weatherford's 23,000, Choctaw's 20,000, Durant's 20,000, Elk City's 15,000, Miami's lower 8, Tahlequah, who has an elected chief, is 6. So Mr. Channel happened to pick the lowest one of all of the ones. It's not, if he'd have put 20,000 in and compared this Weatherford.
I did this
Choctaw.
research before yours even came to
I
me.
understand. I think that Mr. Channel's made some good points. And I think, can we probably do a better job of controlling the use of ammo? I agree, yes. Do we need a written policy on the use, storage, and handling of ammunition? Yes, I agree with you there. I just don't want us to see, you've raised some good points. I just don't want us to do a knee-jerk reaction over one look at this and try to set a limit without exploring it some more and giving staff time to look at some written policies, some standards, work with our union, and come back at a later date with something to propose.
My opinion on that, staff's been here for 4 or 5 years. Staff had time to put that where he wants it. If he hadn't changed it, then he agrees with it. So he's not looking to do anything about it.
Maybe we're asking him to.
I'm just pointing out the obvious.
Any other comments by the council?
Well, I think in what Don was attempting to do here was trying to put together other offices with similar sized staff. Some of those other communities that you rattled off had communities that were much larger in community numbers, right? I mean, 15,000, we're not a community of 15,000.
We're 12.
Okay, but, I mean, these were 28 officers. I don't know how that would be, Chickasha would be so much more different than if you were picking communities that had much larger or larger numbers.
I think Chickasee's more than 15,000.
Okay.
Chickasha has 21,000 population, and they have 28 officers.
So I don't think you can argue he picked a similar sized community.
Okay, I'm just saying, I don't know that necessarily all the ones that were rattled off there were also in similar, was all similar size. I was trying to go back and look, but I can't find it. on
Mayor, I
the-
think we can take this under advisement. I know Don has worked hard on this, and we all have different opinions, but we're not a negotiating committee with the union. Don brought numbers to us, and we have other numbers. I'm proud of Don about the thing, but I think that we're gonna have to go into this a little deeper and find out what the chief has to say about things, and what the city manager, what kind of conclusions we can come to. And we all need to take a deep breath over this issue and try and come back at a later time with more information. This, demeaning each other will not get us anywhere. So, you gotta respect the man for who he is or who they are. Snow won't hunt as far as I'm concerned. So, we need to sit down, put it together, put it on the city manager, come with Don, you get us some information, deal with the union. Guys, we're gonna have to deal with fire and police union, that's just the way it is. But they do have a consideration in this community. So, I don't know that I have, I guess I have a motion to, put all of our information together using Don's and cross-section to everything. I don't think this is a time or place to make a decision.
So your motion is what?
Well, my motion is to take a deep breath, numero uno. And my second motion is to take it back to the city manager, taking Don's information, taking the information the chief has and that the union brings, because we do have to deal with them to a point, and see if we can't find a solution to this. But I'd like to just table this conversation until we get some information.
So table it until we can get combined information.
I think we need a
All parties.
timeline. I mean, we were all on Carroll for having timelines. I think we should have a timeline on this.
Do you propose a timeline?
City manager, do you have a timeline?
Well, it kind of depends on Carol's project. We were talking about one item, one project. I've got a list of probably 25 projects ongoing on my desk right now, and every other department does. We're working with industry, so, you know, if you all want me to focus on this and not the other projects that might be important, it's one timeline. But if we're going to work it in with some other things, I think it's something we got to go through a cycle of negotiations with the department. I think you're looking at 6 months out.
Chief?
I was just going to say, we are in the middle right now putting our budgets together for October 1. And the city manager says it'll probably be 6 months out to work with all the players in hand, and that's probably very true. But I think you all are going to have a lot of control when you look at my ammunition line item budget in August. Is that when? Yeah, in August. So, if it goes up to $36,000, you all are going to have some say-so over that. If it drops down, you all can address it accordingly.
Back to you, Councilman Bircher. Since you made the motion, you want to put within 6 months on it, or you want to put
Well,
beginning of the next fiscal year?
I know the
Which would
city
be,
manager is a one-legged dog and butt kicking contest, but I think with, can we look at 3 months? Is that,
you're the man making the motion.
well, there ain't anybody behind me?
Not yet.
I think we make an effort in 3 months to come to a conclusion. When does negotiations, chief? No, this is not a negotiation. Oh, y'all are you in the process now?
Chief, did you say you'd have a budget in August? Is that correct?
I better get the microphone. My department and all the other departments will have our budgets together. And last I talked to Kim is we are going to meet in August, and you all will get to see it in August. I mean, the complete budget. So you can find account 70, which is police, and go find my ammunition line item. And if nothing else, you're going to be able to see the money that's spent there. And if you don't like the money that's being sent there, you can send it back.
I think that's what I tried to do. I saw what's being spent, I went after it, and I'm trying to address it. And while we're speaking about timelines, I have a deal, another policy that we were going to look at in a later date. I've been in this deal before, and it's 27 months, and we still haven't got that one done. So I think that's kind of the reason we're looking for a timeline, because things have a way of falling through the cracks.
Correct.
And-
This one cannot fall through the cracks. You
so
all
we're-
have to either.
So we're
approve it or
talking,
not.
right now, the proposal is to table this for 3 months, to collect more data, evaluate, have more dialogue.
That's why I'm at 3 months, that way. And if the city manager can make that happen, well, I'll have somebody buying breakfast, but it won't be me.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Dies for lack of a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Submit your votes. Let's see the votes. Two for it and 5 against. The motion is denied, fails.
Mark that down, I learned my lesson.
And I think Chief's point is well taken. We'll have an opportunity to see it at retreat, and we're looking at the budgets for all the departments. And also the impact that the negotiations, contract negotiations with the union also plays into it. It's not just a financial decision.